1, 2, 3, funky.
So my house is super fucking paranormal, and this is the first incident I had. So in 6th grade, I had 3 friends over and we were playing hide and go seek. So I hid in the pantry and there's no way anybody could hear me. There's no vents and I wasn't even talking. So I'm sitting there like, cause like I wanted the wind to fuck. So I'm sitting in there and 10 minutes pass and I hear my friends talking downstairs. So I go down there and I'm like, did y'all give up? And they look at me, they're like, we thought you were in the crawl space. I was like, no. They were like, no, we were literally talking to somebody in the crawl space. And they said like it was this little girl like asking for help and shit. So I get freaked out and I'm like looking around, I'm like, what the fuck? And around 2 minutes later, the doorknob to the crawl space starts going like this, like shaking and shit. So I literally had a heart attack and I was like, okay, we're leaving. So we grabbed all of our shit, we grabbed my dog and we went in front of the house. I called my dad crying. I was like, there's something in this fucking house. And he was like, no, the fuck there's not. So he gets home, he checks the house. He's like, y'all are stupid. Like there's no shit here. But we all heard it and we all saw the doorknob shake. And it only got worse from then. The night this happened, my sister had a hard time falling asleep. So she got up to get some water, you know. When she walked out of her room to go to the kitchen, she noticed my dad's door was open. And he never leaves his door open or sleeps with his door open. But she ignored it and she went to the kitchen to get some water. So as my sister's walking back to her room, she turns around and looks at my dad's door and sees this yellow blob figure with like auras coming out of it. So my sister stares at it for a good 2 minutes. And this bitch sprints back to her room. And this bitch could not sleep. Like she stayed in her room, she couldn't sleep. So in the morning, she wakes me up and she tells me what happens. And because of what happened the night before, I'm like, okay, this is not normal. This is not fucking normal. So I tell my dad and he didn't believe us because, you know, we just daydream. Like kids, it's not real. So we looked up the meaning of seeing this type of figure. And I remember just reading it's evil. And then it could possibly be a skinwalker, but I don't believe that. I know what skinwalkers are and I don't think that was a skinwalker. And as always, it only gets fucking worse. Okay, here's part 3. So I'm going to tell you the reason why I think there is a demon or a ghost following me. So I used to live in a very, 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 very small town named Moni, Illinois. And that's like the house I grew up in. And I loved it. It was full of happy memories, this and that. But then my dad got a little bow thing, so we had to move to Indiana. So instead of selling the house, he decided to rent it out. I don't know, something to do with money, so he could get more dough, baby. So he rents out the house and he's having nobody rent it until he gets his family that decides to rent it out. And it was a husband, a wife, and 2 kids. So around a month after living there, shit went to the roof. One night, the husband decided to shoot and kill his wife, sprayed the entire house with bullets, and then shot the daughter she lived and then drove off. He drove off and killed himself. Here it is. Crazy part is they were killed in my bedroom.
Story time. So one time when my daughter was 18 months old, she was trying to sleep in her crib. At this time, we lived in our house by ourselves. She goes, Mommy, lay with me. So I climb into the fucking crib and I cuddle her. We get to talking and she goes, Mommy, there's a man here. And I know that wasn't true because I told him to come in a few hours. Just kidding. Anyways, I said, oh yeah, where is he? And she points to the corner of the ceiling. I was like, oh, the man's there? She goes, yeah. I said, that's nice, sweetie. Is he a nice man? She goes, no. He's a little mad at Mommy right now. So, like, to whoever I pissed off in, like, a past life or this life, and, like, now you're trying to come creep up on me, like, I'm really sorry.
Guys, I'm going to tell you a quick story about night marchers. Night marchers are ancient Hawaiian warriors that march around the island to protect it. Legend says you'll know when they're coming if you see torches, hear drum beats, and if you hear them, you're supposed to lay on the ground, get naked, and not look them in the eye. Because if you look at them, they'll kill you or turn you to stone. Well, my roommate's friend encountered one of these. He was camping here in Hawaii and it was dark and he saw these lights shining through his tent. So he opened up his tent and he sees them bouncing and he was like, what the heck? And then he heard the drums. He heard them getting closer and closer and then he realized they were the night marchers. So he took off his clothes, laid on the floor of his tent and just put his head down. Then he said the drums got closer and closer and it sounded like they were right outside his tent. And eventually they just faded away. And when he opened his tent, there were no footprints or signs of the night marchers. If you don't believe me, there are a bunch of stories about people who have seen them. And the reason you get naked is to seem vulnerable to them. Don't mess with Hawaiian legends.
My haunted doll Eloise came to me in a dream last night. As many of you know, Eloise was given as a Christmas present in the 1950s, but her owners became quickly terrified of her when they saw her move and make noises on her own. They tried to get rid of the doll, but no one would take her. The family went to a psychic for help. She told them not to get rid of the doll because it can be very dangerous for the family. So they locked the doll up in a wooden chest and kept her in the attic for over 50 years. A family friend's grandmother gave me this doll when she learned I collected them. She told me how haunted it was and to be very careful. When Eloise came to me in my dream, she just wanted help. She told me that she needed to tell her story and that she felt trapped. Let's learn Eloise's story together and help her find peace.
So you guys wanted a story time about my daughter. When Eiley was 2, we lived in base housing in Southern California because my ex-husband was in the Marine Corps at the time. Out of nowhere, she had trouble sleeping. Like multiple nights in a row, she'd come to my room at like 2 in the morning. Not normal for her. She started talking to me about the angry man in her wall. She said he would come out when she went to bed and yell at her and tell her to leave. That's all she would tell me. When I asked her questions, she would not answer me. She told me he would be mad at her for telling on him. One night I woke up to her standing next to my bed, casually explaining to me that the angry man and all the other people were in the room with us and wouldn't let her go to sleep. I felt nothing in this house. But when I sat up, she told me that they were all standing around my bed. Tripped me the fuck out. Within a month or so of us moving back to Texas, she was 4 at this point. She came to my room one night and told me she couldn't sleep because the children were too loud. She said every night when she went to bed, 3 or 4 random kids would come to her room, talk to her, play with her, tell her they were cold and that they wanted her to come with them because she was bright and warm. Scared me to death. And then it suddenly stopped. And the reason really threw me. You guys want a part 2? So every morning I would ask my daughter about the kids, and after about a week or so, she said they were gone. She said they won't come back anymore because Slide and Seesaw protect me. She told me the kids were from a playground, and she was 4. So I just assumed she was pulling Slide and Seesaw, playground equipment, and placing them as names. Didn't think anything of it. But she said Slide and Seesaw protected her. They would sit at the edge of her bed and watch over her, and the kids wouldn't come back anymore. And then she described them to me physically, and told me that Slide would sing to her. She said she sings our song, which was You Are My Sunshine. The physical description kind of threw me off, so I pulled out some pictures. Pictures that she had never seen before and were not displayed in my house. And she looked at them and she said, yeah, that's Slide and Seesaw. My parents' names are Susan and Cecil. And when I was little, my mother used to sing You Are My Sunshine to me, which is why I sang it to my daughter, and because her name means light in Gaelic. She had never seen pictures of my parents before, and they both died years before she was born. Kid's a doorway.
One of the many things I love about Wilmington, little alleyways like this. And if you're hearing music right now, yeah, it's okay. We have a free concert series in the summer on Friday nights. But while I'm down here, I may as well tell you a story. You see, if you ever find yourself down this alley at night and you hear hoof prints from a horse that you can't see, don't worry. It's just a ghost.
Do not mess with duendes. I mean it. Story time. Okay, so I've been meaning to make this video for a very, very long time. And I was thinking about making it last night, and everything went downhill. And for some background information, duendes are basically this myth creature that were used as a scare tactic for little kids. Yes, this little creature's right here. And honestly, this is terrifying. When I was little, I grew up being babysat by my mom's best friend. And she came from Mexico, and she always talked about these duendes and saying how they would take us if we didn't behave good. And also, if you mess with them, they would literally make your life hell. Me and my best friend, being the little shits that we were when we were little, we would search up these videos on YouTube that were clearly fake. Pixelated, bootlegged ass videos. Nonetheless, these creatures are real. Anyways, I decided to get bold last night, and you wanna know what I said? I said, fuck these trifling ass duendes. But in my mind, I just said it in my mind, and you wanna know what happened?